Hi everyone! My name is Catherine if you're new here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a really fun video for you guys. It will be long. That is my warning right now. It's gonna be long. The raw footage for this was just under 2 hours, so there was some mega editing, but it's still gonna be a bit long. However, it's a really fun video, I think. I really enjoyed doing it. My dear friend Melissa is going to school for her master's, and she is studying to be a teacher of the blind and visually impaired, or TVI. And what those wonderful people do is they work with children who are blind or visually impaired to help them learn skills that they need to succeed in school, and also skills that they need to succeed in life that a lot of people don't really think about in terms of things that someone who doesn't see isn't necessarily going to learn. And so yeah, it's a great interview. Her project for this particular class was to interview someone who actually went through school and received services from a TVI, and also to interview a parent of someone who went through school and received services from a TVI. So in this case, she asked myself and my mother if we would be willing to be interviewees, and very kindly offered to let me record the interview to be able to put it up on my channel. So you all get to enjoy this video as well. So I'm really excited. Melissa and I are on camera, but you will hear my mother interject at times also. She didn't want to be on camera, so she's actually standing behind the camera. You'll hear my mother, you'll see and hear Melissa and myself, and I hope you enjoy.
So we're doing this interview because I'm studying to be a teacher for the visually impaired, and you are visually impaired. Mm-hmm. Could you share a little bit about that and speak a little bit to as your diagnosis, and then also when did you first start to feel, or when did you have that aha moment that you were visually impaired in comparison to your peers?
Okay. So my actual eye condition is called Leber's congenital amaurosis. So I've had the same eyesight ever since I was born. It's different in everyone. For me, it shows up as basically tunnel vision. I have a 5-degree field of vision, which if you imagine looking through like a straw, that's pretty much all I have. So absolutely no peripheral vision. Because of the lack of peripheral vision, I also have no depth perception, and I am also night blind. So what I have though, like my central vision, is somewhere around 20/70 corrected. So what I have is actually fairly useful. I just don't have very much, and that tends to be how I think of it. What I have is useful. I just don't have a whole lot of it. So as far as, did you say when I started to notice?
Yeah, because human experience-wise, you know, our normal is always our normal for when you're born, and it's not until often later in life when somebody calls you out on it, or we all have that moment of thinking, huh, okay, so this person over here does things differently, or this person over here, you know, they have cooler clothes than I do, or this person has a pool, or you start to notice how you stick out in the world and how you're different. Was there an aha moment for you when you're like, oh, I'm different than other kids?
I think I knew I was different from other kids for a long time. I knew I was awkward. I knew I tended to bump into things or people. You know, I knew there was something, and I knew I was visually impaired. I've known my diagnosis for almost as long as I can remember. You know, so it's not like I didn't know, but I don't think I really felt it until, I think when I really felt it for the first time was when I had to start using a cane in a white cane in 7th grade. And that's when I really felt it, because I now knew that there was something, like, there was a big white stick that basically pointed to, hey, she's different.
It was tangible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tangible at that point. Because I think growing up, for the most part, I was fairly oblivious. Like, I knew I was different, but I didn't care. Because I was one of those weird kids who, like, just didn't care. So, but yeah, once the white cane came out, and, you know, in 7th grade, when you really don't want to stick out and you really don't want to be different, and then all of a sudden to have this extra thing added that is like, yeah, you're different. Congratulations.
Especially middle school. Like, middle school's the worst. Anyway.
that was yeah. Having to add it in middle school in 7th grade, and I had to learn how to use it in my school, after school, when people were still around. You know, it's not like we went to this completely separate place that no one I knew was around. She taught me in school. And that I think was actually the hardest part, was having to learn it in school. But outside of the cane, even beyond, you know, even past that, I really didn't notice that much, care that much. I think going through school, for the most part, I was fairly oblivious and or just didn't care.
In a lot of ways, that's really good. So you didn't have anyone who teased you and you felt like you were accepted as part of, like, your classroom all the way up through until 7th grade?
Yeah, and even in 7th grade, like, in the classroom, I was fine. You know, it was only when I had to work with that stupid cane that was the problem. And I think Lori knew that, because she did not make me carry it with me all during school. She did not make me actually use it during the school day. And I think part of that was probably because she knew that I really, really was embarrassed and really just, and I mean, if I had desperately needed it, but I was also familiar enough with the school that it was, I think, okay.
She and I had a long talk about this too beforehand. I had to give the go ahead.
Yeah.
And I was standing in St. Michael's Center talking to her, and we were both almost in tears because we knew how it was going to be devastating to Katie. And it was really a tough decision. I had to give the go ahead. It had to be me to say, okay, yeah, let's do this. But I trust Lori with my life and with their lives. And she said she hates to do this, and took her weeks to, like, okay, we've got to talk about this. And then she explained, and she goes, it's the worst part. It's the worst possible time to do this is in middle school. She goes, I wish I didn't have to, but if we don't start it now, she's not going to wind up being comfortable enough to use it. And then in high school, it's almost going to be worse, because then you're dealing with a lot of other things in high school. So she goes, we really have to do this, and for her safety and her well-being for the rest of her life and her independence, we really need to do this. I need you to be on board. And I was like, no wonder I'm crying. And she's like, I know. And it was hard, but because I knew what a great teacher she was, and I knew she wasn't doing this just to be like, well, she's got to do it and whatever. It was, because it was her independence, and above anything, that made it, that was the biggest thing in her life.
So was it just looking at you needing to transition into high school and then into adulthood that it was really like, okay, we need to teach you how to do this now so you can travel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I could get by in familiar environments without it. I can still get by in familiar environments without it, you know. But going into new places is really not good if I don't have some kind of mobility aid.
Yeah.
And at the time that was the cane. Now it's the dog. But yeah.
Let's say I think in all the time that I've known you, I've only seen you use it maybe 3 times, and it's been for like batizados and stuff when we can't take Caleb down to like Portland and places.
Yeah, I use Caleb way more than the cane now. But you know, before that, it was once I got into college, the cane was like glued to me, and I really appreciated it, and I really understood why it was so important. Because you're right, that was exactly it. It was independence.
Yes.
You know, it wasn't. Now that I was being thrown into an unfamiliar environment and needed to travel independently, not just within buildings, but also around campus and outside, that's when it really became like, oh, yes, I need this now. And that's when I really started to like use it and not to be embarrassed to use it. And part of it's going away to college because, you know, kind of a fresh start and no one knows you. But then also just like, this is actually really useful. I like this. But yeah, no, growing up, aside from the big sort of using the cane thing and learning to use the cane thing, I really didn't notice. I really didn't care. It wasn't a big deal. Yeah.
That's awesome. So one of the books they're having us read this semester is written by a gentleman who completely lost his sight later in life. And he really felt that there needed to be a study about how people process like the grief of losing their eyesight. And so it's all about self-esteem. And I haven't finished it yet. But from your post from the week before last, I was like, oh, you know, this might be something you might be interested in reading because it talks about self-esteem in general. But one of the things they brought up is that with people who have congenital blindness, there's usually it happens like right when they start school, they notice that they're different from their friends, and then they have a hard time making friends. And that seems to be like the complaint across the board is, I don't have any friends, I constantly feel left out, and just being
Go ahead, Kate.
sad with that.
So I had very few friends growing up in school. The main difference was I didn't care. I am an introvert. I think the only person I know who's more introverted than I am is my brother. I didn't care. It didn't even strike me as abnormal that I didn't have I mean, I had a couple of friends, you know, in first grade I had a couple of friends I would play with on the playground, or, you know, I always got along really well with everyone, you know, like, I really can't think of any classmates that I didn't get along with, or that like if we had to work together would be like, oh, I hate working with her, you know. I never felt that. So I didn't care that I didn't have like this big group of friends because
Teachers cared.
Yes, teachers cared. My mother cared.
Did they try and put you in
because
friend
the teachers
groups?
were. Pardon?
Did they try and put her in friend groups and things? I know we do that for some of our little.
IEP meetings, but oh my gosh, big deal, big thing. Yeah. Katie doesn't have many friends. I'm like, but she's so sweet and friendly, but she's always alone. I thought, is that a bad thing?
Because I never thought it was a bad thing.
Yeah. So they kind of made me think it was a bad thing, and I think from their point of view, they were wanting to make sure that she wasn't feeling ostracized and she wasn't feeling, you know, anything. And so I would talk to her, like, you know, so hey, what happened on, you know, playground or whatever. She's like, oh, I found some ice and I just pretended it was a boat going across. I'm like, so you played with ice? Yes.
I don't see why that was a problem.
And I was such an outgoing kid, like. Playgrounds were my like, yay, you know, fun times and social times, and I didn't understand that she didn't really care that she didn't have this bevy of friends around. I mean, because I would have.
Yeah.
But again, I could have seen when people were like maybe talking about me or not, or it would have, you know, affected me, but she didn't. At the time, I still didn't realize that her vision was still just a 5-degree field.
Okay.
Because I was thinking it was, you go through ebbs and flows with how your kid's vision is, because you don't really know, because they don't have.
Yeah, we don't have the words to tell you.
Right, because you have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until she was, what, 7th grade, you did the field test with Dr. Murray over there?
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, whoa, that's like a nothing. And then I kind of, but in grade school at Fruit Street, oh yeah, it was, you know, we've got to get her more involved, we've got to get her friends, we've got to, you know, she has to want to play on the playground with kids, but not knowing that it was, well, part of it is she can't really tell who they are out there, and you can't see the body language to say, hey, come on over and play. So there's a lot of little things that went into it.
Yeah.
So from her point of view, oh, she was happy to play in high water. She was like, so thrilled, nah, I'm just this little ducky going along. And I am like, oh my God, she's going to go friendless. Oh, I can't.
And I'm sure with the teachers constantly,
the teachers were like that. Lori was a really great balancing point. She's very kind. Huh?
I said, oh, good.
She was good. Okay, let's try to get her, you know, to be a little bit more integrated with the friends. But, you know, she was so valuable. I can't even the depth of an admiration for that woman, for both of them growing up. It knows no bounds, because she was amazing.
When did she start working with you? Because it was 7th grade when you finally learned about she started with Lori, with Alex mostly, and Katie. Alex was maybe 2 years old. Okay.
So it was in 90, felt like 91 or 92. Yeah, and then she kind of worked with Katie a little bit, not realizing how much she would need. The focus was on him because we didn't realize he'd be as blinder as he is. But yeah, because she would be like the little fine motor skills and stuff like that. I have pictures too, amazing. But yeah, so she has known them really all their lives, and she's been an advocate for me and for them, and explaining to me the mother part of it, of like the grief, like what you were on the parent side. She's like, it's okay to grieve because they're 2 and 4 years old. I'm like, what am I going to do? Will they ever be able to drive? I've always thought like that. She goes, if they don't, it's okay to grieve. It's okay to grieve more than just a death. You can grieve what's not going to be. I went, that made me feel so good because I felt like I was going crazy.
Yeah.
But she goes, no, you just grieve things that are not going to happen, and then you get over it, and you go along, but then you learn to deal with things differently because it's not this pent up rage or anything or denial.
Yeah, so school actually sounds like it was pretty awesome. You started, did you have pre-K at all, or did you go right in?
No. I think I went straight to kindergarten.
Yeah.
Just the part. Were there things in elementary school or middle school that you liked to do after school, or did you have more things that you liked to do after school?
Yeah. So we actually went downhill skiing for years.
Oh yes.
Up through, I think I stopped somewhere around 8th grade because I just got too busy. But yeah, Alex and I both did downhill skiing over at Herman Mountain for years and years and years, and it was so much fun.
Was that through school?
You guys were like 3 and 5 years old when they started. It was through the Blind and Visually Impaired skiing program.
Cool.
And Herman hosted it, but it was actually done and organized by blind and visually impaired teachers. Are there, St. Michael's Son, those people.
Huh.
Yeah.
I can't think, but yeah.
Yeah, so we did that. I really enjoyed that. I think that was one of those things I actually enjoyed more than Alex. For quite a while.
Yeah.
Alex didn't. I don't think Alex enjoyed it quite as much as we would have liked to have thought he did. But yeah, so we did that. I did Girl Scouts for quite a while.
I was the leader.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I started out as a daisy, and then
We started the troop.
I went through like about halfway through 5th grade. Yeah.
And
And then it got boring.
Yeah.
I didn't like it anymore because it was boring. So I just did Girl Scouts up until about 5th grade, and in middle school they had a craft club, which was really fun. That met once a week, so I did that. And there was also a cooking club that happened, which was really fun because we got to go and use the cafeteria kitchen. So we got to, like, you know, go behind the forbidden wall there and actually, you know, be in the kitchen where they made our lunches. So that was really cool. That was fun.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, we got aprons, and I don't remember if maybe they wanted to do chef's hats, but we couldn't because it was just too expensive or something. I don't remember. And nobody got the chef. You know, it wasn't like, oh, we just couldn't buy one. They didn't make them. Like, I think maybe they were too expensive, but they did the aprons, and we got like cookbooks at the end of the year with all the stuff that we made. So that was really fun. And then I didn't do a whole lot of clubs in high school because I just had a lot of homework, and I knew, you know, I just couldn't handle all the things. But I did join the art club. Yeah, I did the art club for, I think, most of my high school years. I think I did that.
So all three of those things are things that you've pulled into your adult life too,
Yeah.
which is really nice.
Yep.
Cool. Let's see. After school activities. Teachers. We were actually, you mentioned one over lunch with geometry that
yeah.
were really fantastic.
Yep.
In a few ways.
Yes, Mrs. Small. She was awesome.
And any other teachers that come to mind? You know, good experiences or bad experiences where either, just any teachers that come to mind that.
Yeah. So I was lucky. Like, I don't remember any really bad experiences with teachers up until college. Like, then there are some stories, but you know, for the most part, in terms of you know, going like elementary up through high school, I had really good teachers. I was really lucky. I also, so Mrs. Small was like the best math teacher ever. She wouldn't let me skate by, which was good because, I mean, I was good enough at geometry. I could have, but she really, like, she knew I could do it, and she wanted me to do well, and so she made sure, she's like, no, we're going to get this. You're going to learn this. If she noticed I had trouble with something in class, she'd call me up to her desk during study hall and be like, okay, so you're having some trouble with this, so here, let's pull out the toys and play with them, and you're gonna figure this out, and I'm gonna help you figure it out. And you know, like, she was really good at that kind of stuff. My Spanish teacher, most of the teachers I really remember a lot are actually from high school. I think because at that point I was old enough and like conscious enough of what was going on to really like be a little more active in my education rather than just kind of taking whatever came my way. So my Spanish teacher in high school was amazing. She was absolutely fantastic, and she was one of those teachers who, even if it wasn't in even if it wasn't in her subject specifically, she would still go to bat for you, and she'd still like say, no, you know what, you really need this or that, and you know, she'd tell other teachers if you needed something extra, or if she really thought that it was really important, because she was just that kind of person.
Was she also a homeroom teacher, or was it she had a relationship with people in the class?
I think, yeah, she just had that relationship with people in the class, and I really liked Spanish, and I think I took it more seriously than most of the other kids in my class. So it also, I think, helped that like we just kind of connected in particular too. But yeah, no, she was fantastic. I actually took, it was the only honors class I ever took. and I took Honors Spanish 2 because that was the only Spanish 2 class she taught. And I was not going to take Spanish from another teacher if I had the choice to have her. So yeah, I had her for 3 years in a row because I made sure, okay, cool. So we have Spanish 1, I have this teacher, she's fantastic, Senora Posan, awesome.
Shout out.
She only teaches Spanish 2 if it's honors. Okay, I'm taking honors. Spanish 3, she didn't, I don't know if there wasn't an honors Spanish 3 or if she just didn't teach it. Okay, cool, I'm back down to the regular level for Spanish 3 because 3 years. And then she didn't teach Spanish 4, which, really, but no. So, yeah, she was fantastic. And then after that, I think the other teacher from that year was my world geography. No.
Yeah, wasn't she?
No, yeah, okay, so sophomore year it was world geography. And that was Mrs. Chernosky, and she, oh my gosh, she was one of the best teachers ever. She was another one of those teachers who, like, she would go to bat for you in any subject, hers or not, it didn't matter. Like, she made it very clear that she believed in all of her students, could all do it. And for me in particular, she just was like, just so encouraging. You know, she wasn't one of these teachers who would like grab you by the hand and be like, no, you're going to do this. But she was just so encouraging and so like, I know you can do this. And she, you know, she knew that a student did something particularly well. Mm-hmm. She'd put you in charge of that thing. She's also the only AP class I ever took was because I needed one more class for my senior year to fill out my schedule. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, for junior year, because I think I would stop by and see her after, because I had U.S. history, very last thing. And it was like one room over from where her room was. So, you know, we would end up talking a lot after school too. And I had said something about like, oh, I don't know what else I'm going to take. I need something else, because I wasn't taking a science my senior year, because we've discussed I hate science.
And math.
Yes.
Science and math, folks.
Had to take math, but I didn't have to take science. So, so I was talking to her, I was like, I don't know what to take. I need something else. And she said, you should come back and take human geography with me. I was like, oh.
Human geography?
Yeah. So she said, it's an AP class. And at that point I was like, whoa. Because I had basically sworn off honors and AP classes because I knew they were I knew it was too much homework for me. It was way too much reading and everything else for me to be able to handle a full schedule of those. So I didn't take a lot of those classes. And so, but I asked her, you know, just like, if I can have an honest conversation with anyone, it's her, you know. And so I asked, I'm like, what's the homework like? Because I'm really afraid that I won't be able to keep up. And she's like, don't worry, you can totally do it. It's not that much. And she was right. Like, you know, she definitely did not lead me astray there. She was absolutely right. But when it came time, she encouraged me to take the AP test and, you know, see if I could get the college credits for it. She's like, I know you can do it. And she led a study group after school a couple times a week to help us prepare for the AP test. But again, like, she knew that I was good at it, and she knew that I could handle it. And so, like, she would put me in charge of like helping to explain things to the other kids in the study group, and she just was she was so encouraging. She actually, when I went to college, she came down like, I think it was my first semester, because there was a geography conference of some kind there. I don't remember if it was for teachers specifically or it was just because, you know, she was also just into geography, so she would do all these other things pertaining to geography. But she got in touch with me and she's like, hey, I know you're at this school. I'm coming for this conference. We should meet, you know, I want to see you and say hi. And, you know, so we would do that. And she would invite me back, like when she found out that I really wanted to be a teacher, and then that I had switched over into secondary ed from elementary. She was like, oh, you know, when you're home for break, come to my classroom. You know, you can help me, we can talk, you can visit, you can help me, you know, do some teaching stuff. You know, she just was so encouraging and really just, oh my gosh, she was a wonderful teacher. And then my English teacher senior year, Mr. Milliken, was also, I hated most of the books he made us read.
Oh!
But he was a fantastic teacher, and he really helped me in terms of like learning how to write well. And I always liked writing, but he actually helped in terms of understanding how to write well, as opposed to just, well, you need to write this 5-paragraph essay, and here are the things you need to do. Oh no, you didn't do it. You know, he would actually say, okay, this is how you fix your wording. This is how you fix this and that. This is how, you know, he had this thing, he hated the verb to be. He did not want us using any form of to be in our sentences if we could at all help it. And he'd circle me like, to be! I'm like, sorry. You know, but it made me a better writer. And again, he was just one of those teachers who he just believed in his students. You know, he's just a really good teacher.
So, English, you said you went from elementary ed in Farmington, switched to secondary ed with a concentration in English and writing, or English?
No, English.
English. Yeah. Was Mr. Milliken partially responsible, or that was just something that you wanted to do?
So when I had been doing, when I was doing elementary, because in an education major you have to have a concentration. Whether you're secondary or elementary, it doesn't matter. Everyone has to choose a concentration, which is essentially like a minor. I mean, you do the same amount of work as a minor, it just doesn't get counted as a minor because you're an education major. But in elementary ed, I really wanted to be an elementary Spanish teacher, so my concentration was Spanish, and for whatever bizarre reason, and I don't know if this has changed, but at the time, UMaine Farmington had foreign language concentrations for elementary ed majors, but not for secondary.
Huh.
That's weird.
So, I know.
So that would be
I know. I don't know why. I have no idea why. But it was like this big thing that everyone said, if you wanted to be a foreign language teacher and you wanted to teach high school, you went to UMaine Orono. Yep. You didn't go to UMF. It just wasn't a thing. I have no clue why. And I think that might have changed since then. But when I went through, you couldn't. So I figured, okay, I do not want to do elementary ed because
you hated it.
I did. Well, and every classroom experience I had in elementary ed was in kindergarten, even though I had told them I've done a lot of volunteering with kindergarten. I don't want to be placed in kindergarten because I've done a lot of that and I want to experience other grades. And they stuck me in kindergarten every time. And I hated kindergarten. It just wasn't. I did not like it. And I think part of the problem was I had, you know, because I can't drive, and Farmington does not have public transportation, and it really didn't have it back then. You know, this is like 15 years ago. It really didn't exist then. So, the only school they could put me in where I could reasonably get there on my own was the local K-3 school, and I mean, I still think if they really wanted to, they could have put me in a different grade level, because I know there were other students there who did their practicums in other grade levels. They didn't have to stick me in kindergarten. I specifically asked them not to because I had done a lot of that, but they stuck me there anyway.
Did they give any reasons why?
No. No.
That was the only part, I think, of your college career with that was off.
Education.
Yeah.
The whole process. I did well academically, but the whole process of actually classroom experience, both in elementary and secondary, just were terrible. I really, honestly, I'm still kind of bitter about that, because I think I would have not done the nutrition major had I had a better experience and been better prepared and better equipped in college to actually teach, because as it turns out, I'm good at teaching and I like teaching, but and it's funny because their education, like Farmington's big thing is differentiation and accommodation and education and making things work for the students, and they really failed me in that way. I have to say, and I am very bitter about that, quite honestly.
Yeah, because here you are, you talked about nutrition, you talked about you making that parallel move into nutrition, and you found your way back to education in a way that works for you.
Yeah. And I mean, granted, back then online teaching was really if it was a thing, it was
sketchy.
barely a thing, and it was very sketchy. It was very, you know, because I had classmates who asked about it, like, oh, I've heard about online this or that, and they were all like, yeah, maybe don't.
Yeah. Oh,
and I mean, back then it was
west of the internet.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the online side of things, I do understand, like, you know, steering people away from that, because back then it was so new and it was really sketchy, and you just didn't know. But there were other, you know, there were other things that could have been presented as options, that the only track that they seemed to care about their students actually being on was traditional classroom teacher.
Right.
And it was the only thing that was really presented as even worth considering.
Yeah. And I don't think they made the accommodations for you that you needed as a blind person.
And I didn't know what I needed to ask for it either. You know, it wasn't.
Exactly.
It's one thing in a classroom situation where you are the student to say, okay, I'm really having trouble seeing the board. I need someone to help me take notes. I need extra time on my exams because it takes too long for me to read. It's one thing to advocate for yourself in that way, especially as you get older and know yourself more, know what you need. But learning to be a teacher, and in classroom experiences where I am supposed to be the teacher and the one in charge, I didn't know what I needed to be able to ask for it and advocate for myself in that way. You know, I just didn't.
And I feel like Farmington should have known, because Farmington is
it's what they do.
Premier education to get teachers.
And they practically shoved differentiation and accommodation down our throats in academic, in the academic portion of it.
You needed to do.
No,
I don't know why.
Gosh, I don't know. So other than that, when you went to apply for college, did you find that people were really supportive of your choice?
Yeah.
You knew you wanted to be a teacher. You didn't have anyone saying, oh, you know, well, these are the careers that would be good for you.
All of my teachers were very supportive.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny, actually, because, you know, everyone always tells you, like, apply to lots of different schools.
Okay.
I knew Farmington was the only place I actually wanted to go. I knew from the second I stepped foot on that campus, I was like, this is it. I'm going here. There wasn't anywhere else I even wanted to apply to, so I didn't. And I was really nervous because they're like, oh my gosh, it's the only school. And actually, again, I was talking to Senora Poisson about it because I'm like, I only applied to this one school, and I'm really nervous because everyone says to apply to a lot of different ones, but I just don't want to go anywhere else. And she actually called me because she actually did the same thing when she was applying for colleges. She said, I knew what school I wanted to go to. I only applied to one, and I got into that one. So don't worry, which was really helpful because, you know, when it's the only school you want to go to. And I mean, we didn't have a ton of money to spend a bunch of money on admissions fees and college application fees and everything else to apply to a ton of different schools either, let alone to go see the different schools. You know, money was really, really tight in high school and through college. So if I knew what school I wanted to go to, I'd been there, I liked the campus, I couldn't afford to apply to tons of different schools. So
when she went there, she's like, it feels like home.
It did. Yep.
You know?
Yep. So no, like all my teachers were really supportive. Of course, Mom was really supportive.
Yep.
So yeah, well, it was, for the most part, felt good.
Yep. And then the constant millennial job search of
yeah. Which, yeah.
Well, you know, initially it didn't work out, but you had your own business for a while.
I did. That also didn't. That didn't work very well either. I loved the people. I did not love the program, and I came in at a bad time. There were a lot of things that added up to that not being a good fit.
Yeah. And
then I'm really glad I got out in early, like December of 2019 was like my last full month, and then within the first week of January 2020 I was done, and then March of 2020 we all know what happened, so I got out just in time.
You would have been out of a job anyway.
Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered.
In general, blind and visually impaired people are truly one of the lowest employed people.
Yeah,
they just
because even if we can do the job, employers don't want us, and they will never tell you that.
No, they'll make accommodations all day long for wheelchairs and crutches and all this stuff.
Yeah,
they will not make accommodations for blind people.
No,
So employment is difficult, and it is hard to get employers to recognize. Like, they'll say it all day long, you know, but it's really hard to get employers to actually recognize that just because you are blind does not mean that you're not capable of doing the job, and that there are all kinds of things that blind people can do. And yes, sometimes we need some accommodations. They're not actually that hard to make, but for some reason blindness is one of those disabilities that people just see and just stop and just can't get past.
So that was also in the book too, and they're talking about, you know, how do we get rid of that stigma, because there's just been this long history of people, because, you know, blindness is in the Bible and visual impairment is there, and it's always been a charity, or poor, you know, they can't do anything.
Yeah, blindness is associated with ignorance. You know, you're blind. You know, they say, like,
and you're deaf.
But you know, they say, like, you know, we equate blindness with so many different things in terms of knowledge and intelligence or ignorance or anything. Like, it's so entrenched with the way we perceive people in general. Like, if you can't see, then there has to be something wrong with you, more than just your eyes don't work.
And you know, you're right in that it's, you look at the Paralympics or anyone else, you know, they're missing a leg or they're missing an arm or anything else, and that doesn't seem to be as big of a deal, and it seems to be more celebrated. You know, someone might be proud to say, oh yeah, you know, I have this guy over here and he's in a wheelchair and it's great because he's working here, but it's a hard stigma, and
I feel
how
like
do we break that?
You know, you hear all the time, like, you know, oh, we employ, you know, we've got people working, you know, at Walmart who, you know, maybe have a little bit of a mental impairment, but getting hired as a blind person, well, yeah, but you can't work your guide dog through and stock the shelves. You can't, you know, you can't do this or that because you can't see. Sight, I think, is probably one of the most stigmatized disabilities.
Do you find that a lot of their excuses are based on you having a guide dog, or is it just they'll use whatever to kind of hedge around it?
Because of the nature, I think, of the jobs I was applying for, because I was applying after having got my degree in nutrition. So I was applying for a lot of jobs that would have been in nursing homes or hospitals, and that would have been in a kitchen and like a food prep environment. And I said during the interview, you know, I put it right out there. I said, I know I have the dog. He helps me get to and from work. I am perfectly willing to bring a crate in, and while I am working, to have him, you know, stay in an office, you know, and not be in the kitchen and that kind of thing. And that's what they told us to do at Guiding Eyes. You know, when they said, you know, when you're applying for jobs, or if you have a job that you can't have your dog right with you, that's an accommodation. You just put a crate in there, and while you're working, your dog can be in their crate, because they're crate trained. You know, they're used to being in crates. It's not like, you know, it's not cruel, it's not anything. They're used to that. That's part of what they're trained for. And especially coming fresh from guide dog training, you know, that's just what they're used to. And a lot of dogs actually like their crates. So, you know, it would be one of those things where, like, if you put a crate in a side office, okay, I can't have the dog in the kitchen, and that is very fair, that's very legitimate. It's dangerous for him. It's, you know, potential food safety issue for the people eating the food. It's dangerous for the people in the kitchen, because, you know, you don't want to step on the dog, and then that might cause... Right. So I understand that, and that is a very legitimate thing. But the accommodation is very simple. You put a crate in an office near where you would be working, and the dog stays in the crate while you're working. And I do have to say, I was still volunteering when I came back, after having gone through the training and come back with my dog. I was still volunteering in the nutrition department at Eastern Maine Medical Center, and the lead dietitian there, she was really sweet. She was very concerned with, like ADA and making sure that she accommodated me with the dog. And she had said too, she's like, I don't want him in the kitchen for the same reasons we've discussed. And, I agreed, of course. The only way to get to the main office area where, all the hospitality people would come in and like, put in their food requirements and everything. And like, I would check in there first thing in the morning to see, who needed help with what areas. The only way to get there would be through the kitchen, but I could go through like a side door. So we were like technically in the kitchen for all of like 2 seconds. And so that worked, that was, and she didn't mind that either. Like that was fine. Cause we were like, we just had to scoot around to get up because it was the only way up there. But aside from, okay, that meant I couldn't help like, put trays together during lunch. I could do absolutely everything else. She let me do everything else. Actually, that was one of the best experiences coming back with like fresh out of guide dog training. That was one of the best experiences because he came with me when I went to see patients and get meal orders. He would be with me in the various offices when I would be in there like putting in the menu requests in the computers. And he worked in a major hospital with me for several months before we finally realized that, because they had gotten iPads and stuff, and like the whole system had gotten a lot more efficient, and I just wasn't needed anymore, which they would never have told me. I had to tell them because I could tell, I would come in and it was like this big thing, like, oh shoot, Catherine's here. What are we gonna have her do? Yeah, there comes a point where you're just like, okay, I am really more of a burden than a help, and I'm supposed to be a help here, so, it's been wonderful. You all are lovely. Thank you. I'm going to step back now. But, I mean, that was fantastic, and it was a very simple thing. Don't bring him in the kitchen. Okay. But we could do absolutely everything else.
So, like, other places of business and work could essentially do the same thing if they put some thought into it. And
it's not hard. They just make it hard, It's like this thing in people's heads that they just can't wrap their minds around, and therefore they don't.
So it sounds like throughout your school career, you had a wonderful TVI who supported you all the way through. You had a very supportive mother and a very supportive community. I know we didn't touch on church, but I know you're very active in your church, and you have a capoeira community and things. So all of these things to build up to your success, and you are gainfully employed, but it sounds like that piece was a struggle. Like you were supported very well up until middle end of college, and really like
it fell apart.
Well, that happens to a lot of people, but in this particular case, it sounds like there is a wall of people realizing that they need to be equitable or stopping and taking a moment. Do you think is there something more that a teacher for the visually impaired or somebody could do to help either bridge that gap and break that stigma for young people transitioning into adulthood, or like, I don't know, like scholarships, or is it just a constant
I don't know. I think it's one of those things that would be a constant, it's just a constant fight. It's a constant need to prove yourself, like more so than most people. I personally cannot imagine anything that anyone could have done for me growing up differently, because really, I was very well prepared for school. School did not prepare me. School failed, and not even school, because, growing up, the public schools I went to were fantastic. My teachers all growing up through school, TVIs, O&M instructors, regular classroom teachers, everyone was fantastic. Everyone did a great job. Never, ever, ever made me feel like I couldn't do anything or that I was stupid or anything. And it really wasn't until it got to the point in college where it was time to start moving in the more internship focused and career focused and actual work experience focused areas. That's where school did not prepare me for career.
Okay.
And it was not a failing of the elementary or secondary education. It was a failing of the post-secondary education, which stinks because, I paid a lot for that. School, elementary and high school, did an excellent job of preparing me for college.
Okay.
And everyone involved in every step of the way there. College failed me miserably when it came to actually being able to get a job after college and actually being able to get something that would fit me both personality and ability wise and in terms of accommodations and things. Very, very poorly equipped at that point, which again stinks because college is expensive.
Yeah.
And to have come out of, basically 2 college experiences with really no better prospects for being able to get a job and, pay for those college experiences is a really, it's a really big failing, I think, on that part of things. And I'm lucky. I had a lot of financial aid. I came out of college really no better off.
Yeah.
In terms of job prospects.
Right.
There are other ways that college was beneficial, but in terms of actually being able to make the money to make going to college, worth it in the way that we think of going to college as being worthwhile in America, no, that was not helpful. That's my story.
Sorry, I'm lost in the broken university system that we have in the United States. Because that's, and a lot of that sounds like the employers are definitely being biased when you're going in for job interviews. And then I think of all of my friends who've gone to grad school, and we were talking earlier about working the McJobs because that's what's available for now, and it's that.
I mean, I couldn't even get a job as a dishwasher.
Ugh.
They wouldn't hire me.
Right.
Gross. But you know what? VIP Kids has been awesome.
They have been awesome.
And you were talking about some plans for the future.
Yeah, possibly. I will say VIP Kid, I was beyond thrilled to get hired for them. And I truly do love what I do with them. They don't know that I am blind. They don't know that I have a disability. My students don't know. Nobody knows. I have not disclosed that.
Because it's China.
It's, partly because it's China. And I honestly don't know if they would. I don't know if they would or would not have hired me. They never asked. It never came up. And I could see well enough to use the program. So it wasn't an issue. I don't tell my students because I am an independent contractor. And I've heard stories from other teachers who have even alluded to the fact that they have a disability of some kind, and they have said they've lost those students, like regulars that they'd worked with for a very long time, and when they found out that there was a disability in the teacher, the parents stopped booking with that teacher. It's not something I actively tell my students, and it's not something that, even when we do the units about, service animals and how, or like talking about disabilities, I do not give them any of my personal experience. I would love to. It would be a lovely cultural exchange, but I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my students. So they don't know. And for the foreseeable future, they won't know. Because I'm not telling them that, because I don't want to lose my job. And because the way they get around that, because even though they are a Chinese company, they do hire and they do work closely with the US, which means they do have to, in some ways at least, follow the ADA laws. So they couldn't not hire me just because I have a disability. But as an independent contractor, it's not their fault if parents don't book me.
That's the way they get around.
So, yeah, exactly. So for the foreseeable future, at least, they won't know. because I don't want to lose my job, and I like my job. So yeah.
Sounds like you have a lot. You do have a lot of fun with it. Like
I really do.
Your setup's so cool.
I really do. Yeah, that's great.
It's
I get to play with stuffed animals for like 2.5, 3 hours every morning. Come on. Doesn't want to do that.
So do you have any advice for teachers going through, any ways that we can help our students, or advice for other visually impaired kids who might be going through and thinking like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, or my TBI is making me do this really horrible, embarrassing thing, and
yeah, it's hard. I feel your pain. I really do. I really understand. All I can say for like the embarrassment side of things, do it anyway. You know, I hate to be the adult that says get over it, it's good for you. But at the same time, you do just kind of have to get over it, because it is good for you, and it is something that, again, I hate to be the adult that says this, because adults always say this, and as a kid, you either never believe them or never understand what they mean or really don't care. But you'll be glad later. You know, like, you will be glad later that your TVI made you learn how to use a cane, even if it was in 7th grade and you were really embarrassed. You will be glad later that you had to be taught how to cross streets, even though everyone else just seems to be able to do it. You will be glad later that you were able to have someone that you could have these kind of conversations with, and actually have someone explain to you what another person was doing with their body language. Even though I still don't read body language. And so for me, like, I'm never going to see the person in the corner, like, in the really aggressive stance that says, oh, I should leave. But knowing that that has been explained to me, and so even if I don't personally know what it looks like or couldn't identify it if I saw it, I at least know that it's a thing, and that, okay, now that I've had that explained to me, are there other cues that I can use? Can I use, you know, are they speaking? Are they making noises? Is there a tone of voice I can use to identify what that body language might be that I'm missing? And so, you know, I would also say just pay attention. You know, I always say I was really oblivious as a child, and I was. But as I got older, I started to realize, and I started to pay more attention, so that when someone would say something, I would pay a lot more attention to, okay, what are the non-visual cues? And maybe not think those exact words, but, you know, that is what I would be looking for. Like, okay, non-visual cues. How can I tell that this person is angry or sad or happy, or, you know, can I tell when someone is high?
You know, that's a legit question, especially high school and college. That's, like, that right there wasn't even in my wheelhouse for consideration with everything that we've talked about and the things that we've been reading as a, you know, for classes.
Not in most people's.
Yeah.
It wasn't in Lori's either.
You think, you know, PG stuff.
Yeah.
Reading and writing and arithmetic and making friends, but in the real world, it's job applications, getting, you know, around prejudice, and people are high, people, you know, creepy people in corners, if you have to take public transportation all the time, you know.
It feels ridiculous when you're going through it and you're walking up and you're this, you know, 16-year-old kid in junior in high school, so whatever age you are when you're 16 in high school, and you have a teacher with you who has to explain how to do things to you. It can be embarrassing. It is embarrassing. Let's just face it. I mean, it is. It is. But it's worth it, and it's important, and there comes a point where, like, again, I was just lucky because I was so darn oblivious that if people were talking about me behind my back or were making fun of me, I had no idea, so whatever. I mean, there are times ignorance is bliss. embrace it. Enjoy it while you have it, because once it goes away, it never comes back.
Oh.
But yeah, it sucks sometimes, but you know, you just gotta do it. I hate to be the adult that gives that advice to kids, because adults always give that advice to kids, but
it's so true though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You gotta suck it up and deal.
You know, and you have to be willing to. You have to be, when you're an adult, you have to be the adult that is willing to override the maternal, I want to protect them, and go with the, how is their life going to be better because of it?
Yeah.
And that's hard. Many times. Crying by myself that they didn't know because I hated it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for them to be independent, to go to college, to be independent, to do what they needed to do and have their own lives, you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah. And I will say too, like you'd mentioned, like, you know, this went from, oh, you know, like PT and you know, orientation, mobility, and like learning to do all these things through school. All of those skills are so important, and what we're talking about now with like employment and prejudice and stereotypes and all of those kinds of things, they're annoying and they shouldn't exist, but the only way to really, and I think it's a continual fight, and it's a continual having to prove yourself over and over, but I think without all of those things that you would do as a TVI, we can't get there.
No.
Because unlike other kids, children who are blind can't just pick it up. They can't just figure it out for themselves. And they certainly can't figure it out for themselves in a way that makes them socially acceptable. So while the conversation took more of a turn into, you know, like the more grown-up side of things, all of those pieces coming together through, you know, throughout school and throughout, you know, like what you would be doing working with those students is absolutely invaluable, because you have to have that foundation of being a competent human being in order to be taken seriously, in order to have even a shot in the dark of being taken seriously as a potential employee, as a person, as in anything.
All right, that is it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and feel free to hit that subscribe and notification button if you want to see more videos like this. If you want to see more videos, more content from me, I would very much appreciate it. Liking, commenting, subscribing, all of those things really do help YouTube channels out. They really help the content creators out, and it helps YouTube to see that people are interested in my content, and therefore it will, you know, push the content up in the algorithm a little bit more. So if you do enjoy this content, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you are into that kind of thing, and let me know in the comments, what did you think? What surprised you? Or if you also received services from a TVI, how was your experience? Was it similar or different? I would love to hear more from you guys in the comments. All right, everyone, I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.